Welcome to Only a Podcast. Two blokes upside down and many miles from home talk about popular culture and unpopular culture too. Music, books, films, the news, what we had for dinner last night, anything goes. Apart from politics, probably. Hello everyone, kia ora. Welcome to episode 9 of Only a Podcast. Say hello, Captain.
Hello, folks.
You're all right.
I should have said hello, Captain. But
You should have done, yeah. That's your catchphrase. You only have one job.
I joke. I only had a... What are you, little... Okay.
How you been? All right?
Yeah, it's pretty good, really. We've had some rain. Now, that's news. Yeah, I know.
That's all right.
Actual wet stuff falling from the sky. We've had a dry summer, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And it's been great, but I'm over it now.
Yeah, you need a bit of rain, eh?
98% humidity and no rain. I mean...
Yeah, something's not right there.
No. But it's much better now. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, well, this episode, we haven't really got a main theme as such. We've just got a few things we're going to talk about. So we'll just do that. So our usual culture catch-up thing that we do, it's going to be that, really, but just a longer version of it. So we'll kick off. Do you want to get the ball rolling, Captain?
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to talk about films that I've seen in the cinema. God, we've actually been to the cinema rather than using
so have I, but we'll come to that later.
Streaming devices. So, yeah, lots of stuff to catch up on, and it is a bit of a catch-up, but, let's go. Dune. I went to see Dune. My daughter is of an age where she is reading Dune for the first time. I remember that. Well, no, I don't really remember that. It's far too long ago. But so we went to see the film. Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, those teen idols, Josh Brolin, Oscar Isaac, Charlotte Rampling. My God, it's packed with stars. Stellan Skarsgård, am I pronouncing that properly? I'm not sure, is the Baron, particularly evil, oily, and floating along pretty much as that character did in the David Lynch version of the film. The dust is much more dusty in this film. Is it the resolution? I'm not sure. Take some goggles to the cinema, folks.
Just in case.
It does take a bottle of water too. The worms are just bigger than ever. Some of the technology is amazing. I know it's CGI, but the dragonfly helicopter things that they all zoom around in, they're pretty cool. But probably the bizarrest thing was I hadn't done any research on the film at all. Having read the book ages ago, I thought, no, that's fine. And quite a way into the film, I was thinking, well, they haven't gone very far into the book here. And it's been going for ages. But of course, it's a part 1, which I hadn't realised before going in. I thought I was going to see Dune, the film, whereas it's actually Dune part 1 of however many parts.
The Dune franchise is what you meant to see. Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. So there we go. Is it Oscar material? Well, it probably is for certain things, certainly visual effects and that kind of stuff. It's got to be in the running. Acting-wise, not sure everybody acts, but I don't know. I tend to like smaller scale things for Oscars, like Moonlight and things like that. So I'm not sure about that. But yeah, go if you're a science fiction fan. It's cool. It's if you saw the Blade Runner 2049 or whatever that was called, then Dune should be right up your street. Yeah. And talking of Oscars, The Power of the Dog. Have you seen this one yet?
I haven't seen it yet. We tweeted about it, didn't we? Because I should see it. Really, we should talk about it. Yeah,
I'm not gonna do a long one on this one. We've seen it quite a long while ago now, but it'll be up for the Oscars because the acting is great. I don't know. I spent a bit more time, probably as the director intended, marveling at the New Zealand in the background. And that's my thing. It's sort of widescreen epics. I don't go for as much in the Oscar runnings, but same comments as Dune, basically. Go see it and make your own mind up. Good performances all around.
You talk about the New Zealand backgrounds. You've just reminded me that I should have really mentioned this. There's a movie that was made around here where I am, which is Dunedin, down in the South Island. And they used a lot of the old downtown precinct area of the city. They used because it looks a little bit like New York if you're sprinkling enough CGI on it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's what they call a castle over here. We just call it a big house in the UK, but there's a castle down here, Larnock Castle, and they use that as the backdrop for it. I'm just trying to remember the name of the film, and I just can't. So can you remember the name of it, Captain? I just can't remember the name. No,
I'll tell you where else features as well. Oamaru features because of the old town area, old quarter, as it were.
Yeah. There's that. The film looks absolutely dreadful.
Oh dear,
looks like absolute crap. But if any of our fans out there want to get a little look at kind of where we live, you can skip through it, turn the sound off. It's a rom-com basically, but a pretty low rent one from what I can say. Netflix only, by the way. So there's that, and I can't remember the name of it, sorry. Yeah. And have you seen anything else at the cinema, I wonder?
Oh, have I seen anything else at the cinema? Well, there's a few more things. I went to see The French Dispatch.
Oh, yeah.
Which is now on Disney Plus after having a run at the cinema, so everyone can see that. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, I know there are people who are not. It's a little bit polarizing, I guess. The French Dispatch is inspired by the real editor of the famous American magazine, The New Yorker, along with the staff. And their stories, there's a phenomenal level of detail in this film, which will irritate the Wes Anderson haters. No end, but they won't be watching anyway. It's stuffed with in-jokes, and I'm going to have to watch it again, just to look at all the titles of the shops and the posters in the background, because they've all got French
little Easter eggs in there.
It's set in the town of Ennui-sur-Blasé, which roughly translates as boredom on apathy. So, you've just got to go and check out all these things again. All the usual Anderson suspects are in it. Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Owen Wilson, Bill Murray, and Willem Dafoe is in
Great
it.
Stuff,
My friend Katie, hi Katie, says that Willem Dafoe is in every film these days. He's not, but they got a lot of work. And there's a rather racy Léa Seydoux in it also. James Bond klaxon there. If you like Wes Anderson, go and see it. But you probably already have seen it. But now it's on Disney Plus, so if you've got that, you can see it too. And finally, Tyrrell. Well, no, maybe not. A couple of things here. I went to see Mothers of the Revolution, which is the docu-drama. It has bits of drama in it about the Greenham Common women of the 80s. And if you lived through those times and you were at all political, or even if you weren't, it's well worth a look, because just how activism worked in those days. The ringing of the airbase by 18,000 people holding hands. And in a case where peaceful activism forced a change, in that the American missiles that were located on British soil and thence became a target for Russian missiles were removed ultimately and went. And it was in no small part due to the activism. So all you idiots out there picketing Parliament, you could do well to look at how things went in those days. There you go, politics with a small p. They had Thatcher and Reagan walking the earth at the time, and go and check it out. There were docudrama bits in it. There were dramatizations of some of the things that happened, which irritated some reviewers, but it didn't really irritate me, because I don't know how you would have shown people breaking into aircraft control towers and other such things, as happened in those days, without doing that kind of thing. So, a strong recommendation from me, because I was in my mid-20s at the time. And
you were like Rick from The Young Ones at that time?
I was, I had badges.
Speaking of which, that's just reminded me. There's a a new book out called In Amber's Wake, which is by Christine Leunens, who you might not have heard of, but she wrote the story that became the movie Jojo Rabbit. Yeah. And that's gone straight onto my to-read list. It's about political activists back in the 80s, so that's just reminded me of that. Rainbow Warrior and all that kind of stuff. So that could be a good read when it comes out. I think it's out now. It came out this week. Okay, and I guess you've been to the cinema one more time, have you?
I have, and I know you have now, so we can now talk a little bit, Beatles klaxon, about the Get Back rooftop concert cut of the footage, which has been out, and I've seen it in an IMAX, and you haven't, so no. Yeah,
no. And I wish I had.
Yeah. Oh, no. There's only one in New Zealand. It's in a terrifying building, which it's really difficult to get into and out of. I was genuinely worried in a building that about 4 years ago, I think, failed its fire regulations thing. And we were sitting there in the cinema watching the Beatles in fear of the fire alarm going off and me not being able to find my way out. So there you go. That's kind of a strange thing. But hey, what can we say? We could say that it was good. I could say that it was slightly overly complicated in an IMAX format. I think it could have been a bit simpler. The sound was great where we were. Some of the footage doesn't quite, despite all Peter Jackson's powerful computing, doesn't quite scale up to an IMAX-sized presentation. But yeah, pretty impressive feat all the same. And for Beatles lovers like us, a must watch.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed because you told me all of this, especially regarding the sound. So it was on at the cinema down here, but not an IMAX. It's one of the old Rialto cinemas, and in we went. And yeah, I wasn't impressed with the sound at all. I don't even think there was any sort of surround sound or anything, just the front speakers. It almost sounded like it was in mono. So yeah, I wasn't wowed by the technical aspect of it, but of course it was brilliant to just watch. There were a few little nuggets in there that I don't think were in the Disney Plus full version of the film. Well, there may have been. I just didn't remember them. But I think there were a few little bits.
I think there were some new bits. Yeah.
So it's just a different edit, and it was only just over an hour long, which again I was quite surprised. I was expecting more than that. But no, I'm glad I went, obviously. But yeah, that's been my only trip to the cinema since we last spoke. But it has brought me on nicely to something that's on my list.
Go for it.
Since the Beatles Get Back came out, I'm reading lots of things about it and lots of podcasts and things. And I've talked about I Am the Egg Pod, and I'm listening to that, getting through those. And I'm learning stuff from it, not just from watching it, but from people talking about it afterwards. So in a new regular feature of the show, what have you learnt about the Beatles since Get Back? Because I've got a couple of great ones, which you might go and everyone else might go, oh yeah, I knew that, but I didn't. So, so what have I learnt since watching Get Back? Well, one thing which might be common knowledge, but I think it's just a rumour, is about Michael Lindsay Hogg, that his father was Orson Welles. That has been denied. But yeah, look it up for yourself. Conspiracy theorists. He looks, I guess he looks a bit like him, and he definitely sounds like him.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah.
So that's your homework, listeners. Was Orson Welles the father of Michael Lindsay Hogg? And the other thing I learned was Ken Worth, who was one of the plod, one of the police officers, not one of the young ones, but one of the police officers who was there on that scene, went on to become Princess Diana's bodyguard.
Crikey.
Yeah, and he's still around now, I think. His name was Ken Worth. So you can look that up if you're interested as well. So yeah, there's a couple of things I've learned from Get Back. Cool. I've sprung that one on you, Captain, so I don't know if you've forgot anything, if you prepared anything on that.
No, I did prepare anything. I did dip into the tailoring, since one thing from the film is the colours have been revived spectacularly, and you can pay attention to the things that they were wearing. That's some amazing stuff, obviously. And I just sort of dug briefly into Tommy Nutter.
Oh yeah, I can tell you a bit about that.
Tailor to the Stars, basically, and Ringo certainly is dressed in that. I think George too, and yeah, that's an amazing cavalcade of famous people went to Tommy's for their suits.
Yeah, he was the dresser of the mods, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I have a little, well, going way back a long time ago. My first wife, her uncle worked in Savile Row all his life, and he worked in the latter years. He worked for Hardy Amy's, the designer, but before that he worked for Tommy Nutter. Around that time, he may well have been there the day of the Beatles concert. I don't know. It never came up. But
taking Ringo's inside leg measurement.
Exactly. There's a claim to fame.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't talk about the Beatles anymore. We've got to stop because not everyone loves them. Can you believe? So, other culture catch-up stuff. I've got Barry Cryer on my list.
Oh, cool.
So we lost Barry Cryer. I haven't really prepared anything for this other than to say, he was one of the greats, wasn't he? He wrote comedy. He wrote lines for everyone.
I have some legends written down here.
Go on, you go for it.
Yeah, which some of the more obvious ones. You're not going to be surprised that he wrote for the two Ronnies, Morecambe and Wise, and Mike Garwood. But some other ones on the list. Bob Hope. Can you imagine writing jokes for Bob?
Oh, that's right, yep.
George Burns. Jack Benny, for God's sake. All these people you think, that's tremendously funny people. Still needed people to supply them with some lines.
Yeah, because I watched an interview with him not long before he died. Richard Herring interviewing him. And he told the Bob Hope story. It was for the Parkinson show, I believe.
Yeah.
Bob Hope was quite insecure and not very comfortable. Often the case, I think, with entertainers, isn't it? And Barry Cryer helped him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him from the radio show, which has gone on for years and years, called I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue.
Yeah.
And his interjections on that were quite funny. And also for a Yorkshire TV production from the 70s called Joker's Wild. And you should go onto YouTube and look at this symphony in brown, basically. The set is brown and beige. Yeah. I would be surprised if they have carpets. And Barry Cryer was the MC of this comedians panel show. And they're all smoking away. They've all got ashtrays. They're all smoking on set. Well, being recorded. The show opens with the theme tune, and they're all stubbing out the cigarettes as it comes around to the time for Barry to talk and introduce everyone. But it was stuffed again with people like Les Dawson, Ted Ray, Arthur Askey, and many other famous comedians of the time were on this show, and he used to run that.
Now. I was going to ask you.
Very good. You go and look at it for a study in 70s TV.
I was going to ask you if you remember, because you're a couple of years older than me. I have a vague memory of being a sort of probably an 8-year-old or something, and there was a TV show on, and it was Barry Cryer, and I remember it was John Junkin.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Brooke-Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the show you're talking about.
There was one called Hello Cheeky, which
it was a kind of panel
may
show
be a similar thing. It could well be Joker's Wild because I'm fairly sure both of those were on that too.
The reason I remember it is because I remember going to my sort of auntie's house or great auntie's house, and it was on the TV, so I knew it from that. But then in the TV Times, like the following week or something, there was some cut out puppets of Barry Cryer, John Junkin, and Tim Brooke-Taylor, if I remember this rightly. This was a long time ago, and you cut them out and you fix them together with little pins, and you could make these little sort of puppets of these characters.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what the show was called.
Okay, I've just had a quick wiki, and I'm right.
It was Joker's Wild.
No, it was Hello Cheeky.
Oh, was it?
It was a comedy series on Radio 2. It says here, but presumably moved to TV at some point.
Right.
Starring Mr. Cryer, Mr. Junkin, and Mr. Brooke Taylor.
Oh, right. Yeah, because this would have been about 1977 or something. I'm going back to here. Yeah.
You also would be correct in that.
Oh,
between 73 and 79, no less. I'm going to have to go to YouTube, and we will post any links that I find to Hello Cheeky. So there you go. That's
okay.
Staggering powers of joint recollection there.
Yeah, amazing. So Barry Cryer gone, but won't be forgotten.
Shall I do the joke now, or shall we do it at the end?
The joke now. Of course, I've got one for the end, but I'll let you have one.
Oh, that's cool. Barry Cryer collected parrot jokes. And actually put a small book out, with his son, with all parrot jokes in them. And the one I like best is there was a parrot in a cage in a flat, and the owner of the flat was walking past the cage one day and suddenly had a heart attack. And crash onto the ground. And the parrot thinks, I don't like this. So he hopped off its perch and knocked open the door of the cage, flew over to the phone, knocked the phone off its cradle, got his claw, dialed 999, and a woman answered and said, would you like fire, police, or ambulance? And the parrot said, who's a pretty boy then? I thought that was the greatest.
Yes.
Barry tells it a lot better than I do, along with many other parrot jokes on YouTube. So just type Barry Cryer parrot joke into YouTube, and you get lots of them.
Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore, do they?
No.
No. What else has come up in the culture world? I've watched, I got through it quite quickly, Afterlife, Season 3, the Ricky Gervais show. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I don't think you're a fan of Ricky, are you?
I am not.
No.
We don't have to go into that particularly. No. Carry on.
Well, just to say that it's, he did his earlier stuff, The Office and Extras. They were, masterpieces really in comedy, genre defining, you might say. Since then, he obviously did some Hollywood movies, which were dreadful, but I'm sure he got very well paid for them. But he's done this show. He did Derek, and then he's done Afterlife, which are not really comedies at all. They're very much character dramas. Yeah. They've got funny bits, but they're comedy dramas, I suppose. And Afterlife, if you've never seen it, it's about this guy who played by Ricky, who his wife has died quite young. She's died of cancer, and he just doesn't want to live anymore. So he carries on going through his life. He's in deep grief and depression, and he's surrounded by all these people, and it's quite an ensemble cast. There's all these great characters in it. And it came to the end of season 3. It doesn't look like there's going to be a third series, but I think it's great. I really enjoyed it. It's very touching. Not a dry eye in the house. It's one of those. He's good at that, Ricky Gervais. He can get under your skin when he's being serious. So good.
I think that may be a reason for me to watch it if I didn't have lots of other things to watch. But the comedy, his straight comedy, I don't really get on with. But the fact that this has a subject that's interesting.
It is. It's worth a look. Have a look at the first couple of episodes. There's a lot of flashbacks because he's got lots of home videos of him with his wife. So it's Kerry Godliman that plays his wife in the sort of flashback videos to when she was alive. Yeah. There's a lot of that, and the cast, you'll recognise a lot of them. I think it's really good. It makes you laugh, makes you cry. It's one of those shows. Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm ticking through my list here. So I've got a big list of stuff here. Tick, tick, tick.
Okay.
Tick. Right. Here's a culture catch-up one, which came back to me in a flashback the other night. We were sitting down. It was Saturday night. We didn't want to put the TV on or anything, so I thought I'd put some music on and we'll do a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah, rock and roll. Cool. So I went through any saved playlists that I had on Spotify, and I remembered this one called Joe's Music. Just looking for it. The A Word, Joe's Music. Now, there was a drama series on the BBC probably about 5 years ago called The A Word. I think there's a couple of seasons of it. And it was an English show with Lee Ingleby, who you'll know his face, I'm sure. It was about this family. They had a little autistic boy, and he didn't speak much. Being autistic, he didn't speak very much. But also being autistic, he was very, very obsessed, you might say, by, in this case, music. But music of a certain period, and certain genre, shall we say. And this music runs throughout the whole show. So you watch it, you're like, oh my God, this soundtrack to this is brilliant. You know, and the period mostly is punk and post-punk and early 80s. There's a lot of that. But there's later stuff as well. So I'm just looking down it now. You've got Another Girl, Another Planet, Don't You Want Me, What Do I Get, World Shut Your Mouth, Accidents Will Happen, The Story of the Blues, and there's Pulp, there's Arctic Monkeys. It's a really, really, and someone's gone to the trouble of putting together a Spotify playlist of all of these songs. And there's 120 songs. And it's really good to put on, and you'll be bopping around the house. So the playlist is called The A Word, Joe's Music. So I'm sure we can somehow share a link to that. But yeah, it's well worth a listen. And the TV show, if you can find it, is worth a watch as well. Yeah. Do you want to go next? I feel like I'm speaking too much today.
No. A couple of musical things, I guess, since we're doing music. I noticed... I do that sometimes. That the bluesmen, if you want to call them that, Taj Mahal and Cooder have, I should say, got back together because they've been doing things for quite a while. But they were in a band called the Rising Suns in 1965 together. Crikey!
Wow, obscurity klaxon, yeah.
And the new album is coming out. It's called Get On Board, and it's covers of Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee blues songs. It has these two chaps, Taj and Rai, are fantastic musicians.
Yep.
It should be good. The lead single is called Hooray Hooray, and that's on Spotify now. We'll probably link to that. Rai's son, Joachim, or however you want to pronounce that, does the drumming, keeps it in the family. It should be terrific. So I'm waiting for the rest of it to make an appearance. I don't listen to much blues these days, having listened to an awful lot of it when I was in bands doing it.
Playing it, yeah.
But I'm going to make an exception for this one because it should be pretty spectacular. And the other musical thing I've been listening to is a band called Rolo Tomassi from Sheffield. I hope. The band is named after a character in a plot twist in the film LA Confidential. There you are, obscurity fans. And quite honestly, it's an ear-splitting racket. But as most of their things have been. But the new album is a little bit more kind of light and shade kind of thing. It has some sort of dream pop wistfulness about it. And then it'll suddenly switch into full-on hardcore metallic onslaught, which certainly keeps you awake. And, might have been one of the things we talk about for getting rid of protesters by playing it overnight at extreme volume next to their tents. So they remind me a bit of the Scottish band Mogwai.
Oh, yeah.
Really, cool stuff, quiet and loud, gear shifting things. And I'm getting on with this album more than I have with any of their previous things. But yeah, I do admit you have to be in a certain mood to listen to it. It helps if you're alternately peaceful and angry, I think.
Yeah, it sums me up perfectly, actually.
If that's the mood you're in.
That's exactly how my life is these days, yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen to Rolo Tomassi.
Oh, we'll do that.
You'll be into it.
Speaking of music to play to protesters, I think you had a little idea there, didn't you? One we can put out to the listeners, maybe.
We could do that, yeah. With for those, the quick summary is, like some of the world, there are certain people who don't like the way things are going. Yeah, and a seriously small minority of people, let's put it that way. They're very noisy, so they get a lot of traction. But you may have seen that there are people camping out in Parliament grounds in New Zealand, and the police are displaying an amazingly light touch and getting rid of them. Somebody may actually be towed today if we can get any towies to cooperate. But the Speaker of the House, Trevor Mallard, has been trying to accelerate their removal by using a PA to play various tunes to piss them off and get rid of them. And there are many things that could have been played. My suggestion was Lou Reed's Metal Machine music.
Oh, that would do it.
At loud volume, that would get rid of anyone It's probably a little too much, really.
Yeah.
But I would argue that anything played
repeatedly
in repetition is bound to get rid of them. My favourite at the moment would, and I don't understand why they haven't done this, is there's a very annoying advert for a power company called Electric Kiwi in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
And I suggest to no one that they look up the Electric Kiwi's theme tune, because it will be in your head for days. They could have played them that. But if you have any better suggestions, listeners, about music to get rid of protesters, then let us know in the socials.
Well, there was... that they were playing, it was reported, I don't know if it's true, that they were playing Barry Manilow to try and get rid of them. And I don't know if you saw the tweet from James Blunt. Now, James Blunt is great value on Twitter.
Fire me up.
Just takes the piss out of himself the whole time. And he quote tweeted where they, the story of they were playing Barry Manilow to get rid of the protesters. And he responded with something like, let me know if it doesn't work, I'm available, kind of things, which is great fun. But we were talking about this the other day. I'm sure, unless I dreamed this, in the UK, a few years ago, they had the whole antisocial behaviour thing, youth hanging around outside shops in the evening and stuff like that. And they trialled putting up speakers and playing a really high-pitched whistle sound that adults couldn't hear, because our hearing fails, doesn't it, as we get older, but only kids could hear it. And they should try something like that only morons can hear.
Only morons.
Yeah.
Can we?
Anyway, no politics on here. That's one of the rules.
No.
Okay. One last thing for culture catch up. Sorry, we're going on a bit again, aren't we? One of my favourite albums ever was by a band called Orange Juice, who some of you will know. It's called You Can't Hide Your Love Forever. That just turned 40 years old, that album, this week or this month or something. It's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. It was defining, really. There wasn't really indie pop before that. There was indie music, but indie pop, sort of accessible indie music, Radio 1 friendly indie music, there wasn't much of it around before that. Before those sorts of bands at that time. And I thought, God, 40 years. And then I thought about what 40 years means. So that album was released in 81. So that was 40 years, 82. That was 40 years after World War II. And here we are 40 years later. And you see lots of that as time goes on, and, music and things like that stay with us, so lots of albums and things have turned 50 recently. And you think about how long that is and how long ago that was. If you think to 50 years before that, it's closer to World War I than it is to today and stuff like that. It's just bonkers the way that time just goes.
Definitely is.
So great album. Check it out. Anything else for culture catch up, Captain? It's been up 30 minutes culture catch up so far.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, it's all good.
I only have one more thing, really. I've been watching a thing on Netflix called The Unlikely Murderer. A Swedish production about a chap called Stig Engström.
It sounds Swedish.
Who was suspected of the murder of the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme, back in the 80s. And to keep it short, Olof Palme was shot in the street after he'd been to the cinema with his wife. And as he often did at the time, told his bodyguards to, it'll be fine, I'll take the night off. He was very left-wing. Well, that's a gross generalisation, but that kind of Prime Minister annoyed a lot of superpowers by criticising them and many other things which I won't really go into here, but this is a dramatisation of that event and the subsequent screw-up and mismanagement by the Swedish police force to track the shooter down. It's a 5-part docudrama thing. They really did get it wrong. One of the bullets wasn't found until 2 days later when the passerby picked it up and turned it in. People slipped past the tape to put flowers near the pool of blood at the crime scene. They trampled all the snow and all that kind of thing. Key witnesses were allowed to leave without actually being interviewed at the time. If they got it wrong, once, they got it wrong in a million ways, and then they tried to compensate by all sorts of things went wrong. So I would recommend watching it. I was interested in it. I didn't really know much about it because I knew that he'd been killed, but I didn't know any of the detail. And this is told about Stig Engstrom because he was one of the guys who they should have paid more attention to initially, but also a guy who was quite repressed in his former life and became, I don't know, he saw this as perhaps a moment of fame. And if he'd just kept his mouth shut, if he did do it, he would have had much less hassle in his life. And I'm not going to spoil any more of that. It's an interesting tale.
I think this gets mentioned
it's there on Netflix.
In the Stieg Larsson Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
It does, because he was looking into it and wrote about it.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of, I don't know if it is unreleased, but he certainly wrote at length about what happened.
Yeah, that definitely gets a mention in those books,
to try and nail it. And it got a mention in another crime novel that I read, which sort of piqued my interest before that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
That's me. I'm done.
That's a massive culture catch-up.
Huge.
I don't know if you have a main theme or if you've got only culture catch-up, because I have another kind of, well, it's part of culture catch-up, I guess, but it's something quite specific. So shall I go straight into that?
We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah. So I want to talk about someone who caught my attention quite a few years ago now. And she's kind of come back into the limelight a wee bit in recent years. So her name is Hannah Grace Della. Okay. And I would say she's a photographer, which she is, but she's also a musician. She's also a nurse, and she's also a karate champion, right?
Cool.
She, I first knew the name in her guise as a photographer, because she did the cover shot for there's an album called Surf by Roddy Frame, and there's the album cover is a London skyline photo, and she did that photo, and she did a lot of the publicity photos for that album around that time. So I got to know her name just through that, and that was that was quite some time ago now, maybe 20 years ago. That could be, whenever that was, and that was that. And then I saw her name pop up a year or two ago in the media. And it turns out she's a nurse in a hospital in London. She was, I think, on a paediatric ward. And then COVID happened, and she got her ward got turned over into a COVID ward. So that she was dealing with that, as happened with so many healthcare professionals. They all got rediverted onto COVID. So she decided she would document what was going on in the hospital at this time. So she was posting all these photos. And it was phenomenal. I mean, it was like war photography, really. I mean, it was amazing stuff. And this came to the public attention, and there's articles all over the place in the media about what she did. This caught the attention of Chris Difford from Squeeze, and he had a project. It inspired him to, I don't know the full details of this, you'd have to go and read it, but it inspired him to curate, shall we say, an album called Song Club, Chris Difford's Song Club. It's on Spotify, and there's all sorts of musicians from all around the scene. And they wrote songs inspired by Hannah's photos, and you could see them on the cover of the album. All these photos from within this hospital. Hannah herself appears on one or two of the songs because she's also a singer-songwriter amongst all her other talents. But yeah, there's people like Judy Zook, Julia Fordham, Nick Haywood, Beth Nielsen Chapman, Graham Gouldman. There's a whole list of people on that list. So it's a great album. We'll post up a link to it. But it was all inspired by Hannah's photography. Cool. She was invited to be part of the Grace and Perry Art Club. I don't know if you know that, Captain, but if you don't, you really should. If you can find a way to get onto Channel 4 in the UK, to 4 on Demand or All 4, whatever it's called, and watch Grace and Perry Art Club. It's fabulous. Okay. Well, she was invited to be part of that as well. And her work is just tremendous. And I've heard her interviewed, and she just seems like a really, really cool person. She's a South London girl. She's from Bermondsey or something like that, and she's got a proper London accent, which is great to hear. And she's just really, really cool. Oh, and on top of that, she's a karate champion. She's represented the UK or Great Britain in karate, and still does to this day, I think. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her, really, because I think what she does is fantastic, and she's a huge talent. So it's Hannah Grace Della. Cool. Her website is hgdart.com. And I think the only social she's on is Instagram. I don't think she's got any other socials, but I'm not sure. But head along to her website and have a look at some of her work. It's fantastic. So I just wanted to talk about her, really, because she's really, really, really cool.
All good.
I think, does that bring us to the end?
Yeah, could be time to
I think it is.
Wrap it up in the usual fashion.
Yeah. Well, it's 16th of February we're recording this. So it's Valentine's Day a couple of days ago. Thought I'd make an effort this year. You know, as a romantic guy that I am, thought I'd make a bit of an effort. So for Valentine's Day evening, I booked a table for me and the wife. Didn't go well. Didn't go well at all. It turns out she hates playing snooker.
Oh.
One more thing before we say our goodbyes. It would really help us if you could rate and review this podcast on Spotify or Apple or whatever you listen to.
Yeah.
If you could give us some stars, 5 is the best number of stars, and write a little review, because it really helps us with the rankings on those platforms. We've almost hit. Let me just refresh and see if we've hit the milestone yet. But we've nearly hit.
Have we done it?
I don't know. Let's have a look. It's been tantalisingly close. I just refreshed the screen. No, we haven't. So we've actually we're one away from hitting 500 downloads, which doesn't seem like a huge number, but in podcast terms, that's quite good going. You know, you hear of millions and millions of Instagram followers and YouTube hits and all that. You don't get that with podcasts. Because it's quite a commitment for a listener to take the time to listen to a podcast. So you're not just scrolling past something on a screen. So the numbers aren't as big. But we're doing all right for numbers. But we really want to try and grow those numbers. Try and get out there and enable us to keep going. So, please, thanks to everyone that's listened so far. And if you could give us a little ranking and a rating and a review, it'd be great.
Cool.
Not much.
Trying to retweet or whatever.
Oh, retweet us, follow us. Yeah, we're most active on Twitter. I think we both have an equal hatred for Facebook and Instagram. It's harder to do for an audio format, isn't it? There's not much to do.
Seems that way.
On Insta. So I know on those platforms it looks like we're only posting when we've got a new episode to market. But if you are on Twitter, then you can find us at Only a Podcast. And that's where all the good stuff happens.
Cool.
I think that's all, isn't it?
It is.
So, say goodbye, Captain.
Goodbye, Captain.
And we'll see you all on the other side, folks. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
You've been listening to Only a Podcast. If you'd like to get in touch and share your feedback and ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Go to onlyapodcast.com, or you can find us at Only a Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or via our Facebook page. Remember, it's only a podcast.